Today I want to talk about identity. But first things first, I should probably address the elephant in the room. Yes, I was gone for a month. No, I'm not dead. Clearly, I'm just a uni student. Anyway, identity. So, I want to talk about what is it? Why should we care? How do we quantify it? And lastly, since I am a VTuber, I'll talk about some VTuber stuff related to identity that I have been thinking about. Because I think, therefore I am. Maybe? So anyway, back in the good old Enlightenment days when people theorized identity, there was this guy, John Locke, and he had this idea where if you're the person that remembers being you in 2020, and if the you in 2020 remembers you being in 2012, for example, then you must be the same person, because there's a continuity to the memories, a transitivity even. In math terms, that would be A is equal to B is equal to C, and A must then equal C. Now, there's some other stuff about Q memories and other letter memories denoting, which memories are legit, but that's all that it is, really. And it's a bit of a mess, and maybe I don't really like it. So then, is that all that identity is? Sense of self stored in the balls, with sum of experiences and remembered experiences unique to a given person with a bit of continuity in between? This feels unsatisfying, and perhaps there is something more. In this globalized interneted up world that we live in, our identity can exist and survive within ways that people see us, either directly through interactions, or by seeing stuff that we've said years after the fact and getting an impression of, oh, that's Hopla Popla and that's what she's meant to be like. And this is kind of what later philosophers really got into. They were like, okay, maybe continuity isn't the key here. Maybe it's survival of identity that we should really be looking at. What survives? What identity? Well, according to the banger known as Yagate Kimi ni Naru, we can take a look at what they say. Well, his description of her was completely different from how I saw her. Now I'm wondering what other sides of her I would learn about if I asked someone else. Now, the story resolves that of, if I'm trying to be my sister that's dead, which identity should I become? By saying, you don't need to become anyone else. You just need to be the you that you are. But that's not how we want to unpack that. Because, well, as you says, I mean, isn't everyone like that, at least somewhat? In the field of history, academics hesitate to apply modern labels to individuals, preferring to stick to more neutral descriptions of acts and behaviors, without erroneously forcing a person into a modern box. Some people decry this as homophobic, citing the fact that we seemingly don't hesitate to label historical people straight, and so on. But I think this just ties into survival of identity. All we have in 2000 and whatever is what other people said of the person, and maybe if we're lucky, what they said about themselves. They can't speak to us from beyond the grave to say, oh yes, I would have used this label that has been created after I was long dead, similarly to the way a content creator can't always speak directly to individual fans in their audience once they're past a certain size. All you get is one perspective, or a couple perspectives, that can carry their own agenda in representing the self in a certain way. I'm not sure then that every perspective of the self is then representative of some whole, because clearly not everyone is a reliable narrator 100% of the time. Not even you. And why would you be reliable? There's money to make, a personal brand to sell. What matters is how people see you and how you can monetize it. Is what I would say if I was a soulless capitalist with no morals other than making money. But branding is still important. We do live in a society after all. The brand tells people what you believe, who you want to be seen as, where you situate yourself or want to be situated in society. But we can't just beam thoughts into others' faces. Yet. We need to use imperfect language to try and communicate the broad experience of human thought, using words, labels even. Surprise, I have a label hot take in here too, because I do be me. And essentially, I think that queer experience being, a subset of human experience means that you kind of have to use imperfect language because you can't beam what it means to be your specific flavor of queer to other people. And that's okay, as long as you recognize that labels are stickers, they're not boxes, and you shouldn't police where the edge of that box is or push someone into a specific box. Back to more broader identity and self, we can take that point a little bit further. If the self is at least partly stored in your own perspective and partly in others, needing imprecise words to communicate your own view of your identity, maybe no one can get the whole picture. Maybe all you can really do is show bits and pieces of it. And that's where I bring it back to VTubers and virtual selves. Who is the avatar? I mean, I created it. I give it a voice, facial expressions. Is it me? Being an indie VTuber, maybe the avatar is just one of many possible representations of myself. And perhaps with the more corporate VTubers that are playing a character, it's just another voice acting gig that happens to be pretty chill and improv based. But then, aren't we all playing a role in every interaction with another person? Consciously preening how we appear and modifying it as we get feedback, following the rules of interactions or breaking them tactically. So then VTubing is perhaps an exaggerated form of this. Facecam streamers are of course a thing, but if I wanted to look half as good as my character, I'd need to live on caffeine and makeup, and people would just make assumptions of who I am based on what I look like. With the avatar, I have my face of makeup, and I can nudge those assumptions in a specific direction. And maybe not everyone is consciously doing all this, consciously considering what is happening socially. I do be autistic after all, and it's kind of par for the course to be consciously considering social interaction instead of it just happening subconsciously like for neurotypical people. Who are we then? Ephemeral existences that ebb and flow, stored in bits on a computer, words on a page, and memories in the people that we touch as we go through this world.